If your goal is to lose weight, you've probably heard one piece of advice more than any other: cut calories. But a leading metabolic scientist says that's misleading. Dr. Benjamin Bickman, a metabolic scientist from Brigham Young University, is back to expose some of the biggest myths surrounding weight loss and reveal the surprising hormone that controls it all. According to Bickman, insulin is the one metabolic hormone to rule them all. It controls far more than just blood sugar. This hormone tells every single cell in your body, from brain cells to bone cells, what to do with the energy you've just eaten. Insulin is so determined to store energy that it aggressively directs calories away from being burned and into storage, especially in your fat cells and your liver. Meanwhile, ketones, molecules your body makes when it burns fat, are actually the brain's preferred fuel, and they have a calming effect. Research suggests that ketones can help ease anxiety, lift your mood, and sharpen your focus, giving your brain a steady, clean energy source. The benefits of ketones are so extensive that companies now sell drinkable exogenous ketones. Several different brands are ready to test on the table. Dr. Bickman agrees to design the perfect diet and lifestyle plan for 2026, a practical, simple strategy anyone can follow. But first, a quick reminder: if you haven't already, please double check that you're subscribed. It's a simple, free way to help us keep bringing you these conversations. In North America, there is a measurable seasonal pattern to weight gain and insulin resistance, with the winter months showing the worst numbers. Even non-hibernating mammals like humans show a subtle echo of the hibernating bear's seasonal insulin shift. We are more insulin resistant in winter. The best advice is to structure your indulgences deliberately. Give yourself a specific window for treats rather than relying on willpower alone. Recruit a family member or loved one as your accountability partner. Ask them to remind you when it's time to get back on track after your indulgence day. Carbohydrates are the one macronutrient most people find hardest to control, and they have the most disastrous consequences in the form we consume them. In a survey of thousands of listeners, calorie counting ranked dead last among planned dietary changes for 2026. Keto was number one. Dr. Bickman is thrilled. It signals that the old calorie-only paradigm, the eat less, exercise more approach, is finally fading from public thinking. The very act of eating raises your metabolic rate temporarily. This is called the thermic effect of food, and it varies depending on what you eat. When people eat two meals with identical calories but different macronutrients, the low-carb, higher-fat meal produces a significantly higher metabolic rate for hours afterward. Insulin is the master metabolic hormone. It tells every cell in your body what to do with energy, not just control blood sugar. Here's the problem. Insulin is so determined to store energy that it actually slows your metabolic engine down. It forces your body to hold on to every calorie rather than burn it. So real success is not just losing weight on the scale, it's about shrinking your fat cells themselves. That is the true goal: healthier, smaller fat cells that store less and release energy more freely. Consider liposuction. You can have 20 pounds of pure fat sucked out, but afterward, not a single health marker improves. If you were diabetic, you are just as diabetic. That is because you only removed the fat. You did not fix the underlying insulin problem. You have seen it on TV shows like The Biggest Loser. Contestants drop massive amounts of weight by cutting calories, but you never see them a year later because nearly all of them gained it back. Calorie-only diets fail because they do not address insulin. Dr. David Ludwig at Harvard tested this. He gave people two meals with exactly the same number of calories, isocaloric they call it, but one meal was low carb and high fat, the other high carb and low fat. He measured what he called total energy availability, every calorie molecule floating in the blood. The insulin spiking meal left far less usable energy circulating. The blood became energy poor, even though the meal had the same calories. Here is why. Insulin grabs that energy from your blood and shoves it into storage, into your fat cells and your liver. It is like a landlord locking the pantry, telling the body it cannot access the food. But here is the catch. Your brain does not have that storage capacity. Your fat cells can hold thousands of calories. Your liver can hold hundreds. Your brain? Almost none. And yet your brain has a very high energy demand. So when you spike insulin, you lower your blood glucose, and at the same time, you stop your liver from making ketones, the two main fuels your brain runs on. glucose and ketones, both drop at once. Losing both fuels together can trigger noticeable brain fog. Your brain is literally being starved of energy, even while your fat cells are packed full of it. That disconnect is what makes you feel slow and groggy. A study gave two groups an identical number of calories for breakfast. One group ate low carb, the other high carb. The high carb group was hungrier much sooner. Your fat cells might be overflowing with stored energy. Yet your brain, which has no storage of its own, still senses a shortage in the blood. When you burn your own fat, the liver turns that fat into ketones, and ketones are the brain's preferred fuel. They tell the brain, we have plenty of energy, no need to eat. Dr. Bickman says if you want to shrink your fat cells, do not start by cutting calories. Start by lowering your insulin. Fix that first, and the rest becomes easier. He makes a bold claim: if you could remove insulin from the body entirely, it would be biologically impossible to become fat, no matter how many calories you ate. Consider a young girl with undiagnosed type 1 diabetes. Her body makes almost no insulin. She can eat freely and still stays very thin, but feels terrible. The word diabetes comes from an ancient Greek term meaning to pass through. Because untreated patients urinate so much, it was as if their flesh was melting into liquid. Once diagnosed and put on insulin therapy, that same girl often gains weight rapidly, sometimes 10 or 15 pounds in just a few days in the hospital. Tragically, some people with diabetes abuse this knowledge. They deliberately underdose their insulin so they can eat whatever they want and stay thin, at great risk to their health. Dr. Bickman warns, if you start your weight loss journey by cutting calories alone, hunger will eventually win. You will be right back where you started. Protein and fat have almost no effect on your insulin levels, so you can eat them freely without worrying about a spike. The key is to eat only when you are genuinely hungry. When you do, you never feel deprived. You simply listen to your body. One family member tried this approach and effortlessly lost about 15 pounds. He wasn't counting a single calorie. He just ate protein and fat when hungry. One viewer wrote that they reversed pre-diabetes in just 68 days. They cut out sugar and flour entirely and ate a high-protein, high-fat, low-carb diet. Dr. Bickman is clear: a low-carb diet is not the only path. Some people lose weight on a purely plant-based diet. But the key is controlling insulin, not just calories. Lab studies show that when ketones are present, the metabolic rate inside fat tissue can actually triple. That means you burn more energy just sitting still. Here is the surprising part: every ketone molecule carries a small number of calories, and in a low insulin state, your body literally breathes or urinates some of those calories away. So when your insulin is low, your body can end up wasting stored energy. Every breath you take can be a calorie leaving your body, without you having to exercise for it. When listeners were asked what dietary change they planned for 2026, the number one answer was ketones. People are clearly curious about this molecule. So what is a ketone? It is simply a molecule your liver makes while it is burning fat. Anytime you are burning a lot of fat, your liver will start producing ketones. Making ketones requires insulin to be low. That entire process is called ketogenesis. When you fast or cut carbohydrates, insulin drops. That signals your fat cells to start breaking apart their stored triglycerides. That released fat travels through the bloodstream directly to the liver for processing. The liver then has a choice. It can store that incoming fat, or it can burn it. Insulin makes that decision. When insulin is low, the liver cannot store that fat. It has no choice but to burn it. One study found that just a single week of low-carb eating reduced liver fat by roughly 60%. That is remarkable. Critics often say a ketogenic diet is not sustainable. But every diet fails once you stop doing it. Because this way of eating is not driven by constant hunger, some people sustain it for life. Children have followed ketogenic diets for years to control severe seizures and migraines. It is a proven medical therapy. Research now shows that nearly every major brain disorder, from depression to Alzheimer's, may benefit from ketones. One viewer named Shanti wrote in. She said after 35 days on a low-carb diet, she had lost 17.5 pounds. She felt better than she had since she was a teenager. Carrying constant hunger through a weight loss journey is like dragging heavy luggage the whole way. It makes the trip almost impossible. A diet based on lowering insulin removes that burden. Weeks into a low-carb diet, something strange can happen. A favorite treat you used to crave suddenly has no pull. You can look right at it and feel nothing. Your brain has changed its fuel source. Volatile glucose swings, where blood sugar goes very high then very low, act almost like a form of abuse on the brain's fuel supply. It force feeds the brain, then starves it. That roller coaster drives cravings. When the brain gets a steady, consistent fuel from ketones, it reaches a new level of calm. It can tell the rest of the body, we don't need that cookie. We have plenty of energy right here. After the brain, the heart is the organ that benefits most from ketones. Dr. Bickman explains that the heart actually thrives on this fuel, especially when it is under stress. In heart failure, the heart muscle cannot pump blood as well as it should. Research shows that when the heart is struggling, it naturally shifts its fuel to start relying more on ketones to improve its function. What many people don't realize is that the liver actually makes two mirror image forms of the main ketone, called BHB. They are labeled DBHB and LBHB. They are structured as opposites. A recent study used a pig heart model, which is very close to human anatomy. Researchers infused the less common form of the ketone, LBHB, directly into the cardiovascular system. The results were remarkable. The LBHB infusion allowed the heart to eject 40% more blood with every single beat. It didn't make the heart work harder, it expanded the major arteries, lowering the pressure. The effect was not from the heart working harder. It came from the major vessels widening, the aorta and its main branches expanded, letting the heart push more blood with less effort. Dr. Bickman once measured his own blood pressure at the dentist and was surprised. It was 139/90, higher than it had ever been. He is a healthy person, but sleep deprivation and stress had taken their toll. As a personal experiment, he took a shot of a specific form of ketone called LBHB. This was the straight acid form. No salts, no esters, just the molecule itself. Within about an hour, his blood pressure dropped sharply, down to 110/70. That is a dramatic change, and it happened quickly. The likely explanation is the same mechanism from the pig study. LBHB causes the great blood vessels to widen. Wider vessels mean lower pressure, and the heart can beat more freely. The ketones your body makes on its own are called endogenous ketones. Your liver produces them when insulin is low and fat burning is high, like during fasting or a low-carb diet. New wearable sensors can now track blood ketone levels continuously. A small patch on your arm sends readings to your phone, similar to the continuous glucose monitors that have become popular. To demonstrate, Dr. Bickman pricks his own finger. He places a tiny drop of blood on a test strip and inserts it into a small handheld ketone meter. His baseline reading comes back at 0.3 millimoles per liter. That is the very edge of ketosis, just barely detectable. Most people not fasting or eating low carb would show a similar number. Now he takes a shot of a ketone precursor product called Ketone IQ. It contains a molecule called 1,3-butanediol, which the liver will convert into BHB, the main ketone. From your gut, that precursor molecule travels straight to your liver, which acts like a tiny refinery, rearranging it into the ketone BHB. Once BHB enters your bloodstream, it plays a double role. It fuels your cells directly, and it sends signals that change how those cells behave. Glucose, by contrast, cannot simply walk into most of your cells. It needs a key called insulin to unlock the door, giving insulin control over who gets in. Ketones have no such restriction. They slip into any cell with mitochondria freely. No permission needed, no insulin required. But BHB does more than provide energy. It also acts like a hormone, docking onto receptors on the outside of cells and telling them to change what they do. One of those signals is to increase nitric oxide, a natural molecule that relaxes and widens your blood vessels, lowering blood pressure and improving flow. Minutes later, the host pricks his finger again. The meter now reads 0.9, a clear climb, showing the ketone precursor is being converted fast. The conversation turns to an important question. Do ketogenic diets affect men and women differently? The answer is yes, and it comes down to hormones. A woman's hormones change dramatically across her monthly cycle, with estrogen and progesterone levels rising and falling by huge margins, far more than in men. In the early follicular phase, just after a woman's period ends, estrogen rises while progesterone stays low. In this window, she burns fat more readily than a man. After ovulation, the luteal phase brings a sharp rise in progesterone instead. This hormone changes how a woman's body handles fuel and hunger. During the follicular phase, the first half of her cycle, a woman's body becomes a fat-burning machine. She can reach ketosis faster than any man. Free fatty acid levels run 40 to 50% higher in women during that first phase. Her body is actively pulling fat from storage to burn for energy. Ketosis is technically detectable at around 0.3 millimoles per liter. 0.5 is the more common cutoff, but the body starts shifting fuel long before that number. Progesterone during the luteal phase acts as a hunger hormone. Cravings and appetite rise, making fasting or strict low-carb eating noticeably harder. For women, the smart move is to be gentler with themselves through that harder luteal window. A little more flexibility with food during those days is not a failure, it's biology. Researcher Dr. Isabella Cooper put this to the test. She took healthy women who already followed a ketogenic diet and had them switch to a high-carb diet for 21 days, then back to keto. Her data showed no meaningful change in cortisol across either phase. Some women's cortisol went up, some went down. Overall, it was just a flat line. The claim that keto uniquely stresses women's cortisol looks overstated. Women are not small men, but on this specific point, the evidence doesn't support the fear. Now comes the question that matters most. What does a practical, sustainable day look like for someone who wants to finally get this right in 2026? The first rule is simple. Eat little to no carbohydrates at breakfast and lunch. That means no toast, no cereal, no oatmeal, no fruit juice in the morning. Save those for dinner, if you want them. Why skip carbs in the morning? Because your cortisol naturally rises when you wake up, and that already nudges your blood sugar upward. Adding a bagel or a bowl of sugary cereal on top is like pouring gasoline on a small fire. The good news is, you can eat as much protein and fat as you like at those meals. They have almost no effect on insulin, so eggs, bacon, steak, salmon, full-fat yogurt, cheese, all perfectly fine. No hunger, no deprivation. Make lunch your biggest meal of the day. A hearty lunch of protein and fat keeps you full for hours and makes it far easier to resist cravings that creep up in the evening. That one switch alone can transform your whole eating rhythm. Dr. Bickman himself skips breakfast entirely. Instead, he sips yerba mate tea each morning. It gives him a gentle lift and helps keep his fast going a little longer. No hunger, no problem. But even though he doesn't eat breakfast himself, he still cooks a full morning meal for his kids every single day. It is a cherished family ritual. He scrambles eggs, makes toast for them, all while sipping his tea. Around mid-morning, he does a short resistance workout, just 20 or 30 minutes, then he heads straight into a sauna for 12 to 15 minutes. It's a simple, repeatable routine that keeps his metabolism humming. He also takes a quick ice bath first thing in the morning. It sounds uncomfortable, but he says it helps him sleep far better at night. That cold shock resets his internal clock and makes him ready for bed by evening. If your goal is metabolic health, exercising in a fasted state is smart. It keeps your body burning fat and maintaining insulin sensitivity. If you're an elite athlete chasing peak performance, then eat first. But for longevity, fasted movement works beautifully. Dinner is different. It is the shared family meal, and Dr. Bickman eats whatever his family is having. Pizza, pasta, vegetables, no restrictions. The key is to eat it early, around 5 or 6, and then stop. No evening snacking. He avoids obsessing over food rules around his daughters, mindful of the eating disorders he has seen in young women as a college professor. Dinner is kept early, typically around 5 or 6 in the evening, because eating late sets off a cascade of problems for sleep and metabolism. His single biggest recommendation: stop snacking entirely once evening arrives. That one change, he says, can transform your sleep and your waistline. Willpower is weakest at night, making evening snacks the hardest to resist. You can walk past a plate of cookies all day, but at 8 p.m. it becomes nearly impossible. Going to bed with low blood sugar triggers the body's fight or flight response, activating the sympathetic nervous system when you need calm. That blocks the calming parasympathetic nervous system, the one that lowers heart rate and blood pressure, making restful sleep impossible. Exogenous ketones can ease the early discomfort of starting a ketogenic diet, helping the body transition more smoothly into fat-burning mode. A new lab study found that people who drank BHB during a weight loss protocol retained significantly more lean muscle mass compared to those who did not. A listener described her husband collapsing just 8 hours into a new keto diet, unconscious and unresponsive, a terrifying turn of events. Paramedics revived him with emergency glucose just in time. It turned out he had a rare insulin-secreting tumor called an insulinoma. After that terrifying collapse, doctors ran tests and found the root cause, a rare tumor on his pancreas called an insulinoma. An insulinoma is a tumor made of cells that constantly pump out insulin. It has no off switch. So when he cut out carbs on the keto diet, his insulin kept driving sugar out of his bloodstream. His blood sugar dropped to a dangerously low level. One simple check. If you fast for 12 hours and your blood sugar keeps falling, it could be a warning sign. Most people's glucose stays steady. Cancer cells are sugar hungry. They consume glucose at a ferocious rate. Doctors use this fact to find tumors by injecting a tiny bit of radioactive glucose and watching where it collects. Dr. Bickman's own mother passed away from cancer when he was a boy. That loss drives his personal commitment to a low-carb, ketogenic lifestyle. Researcher Dr. Thomas Seyfried has championed a bold idea. Cancer is not primarily a genetic disease, but a metabolic one, driven by how cells use energy. In a striking experiment, Seyfried swapped the mitochondria from a cancer cell into a healthy cell. The healthy cell turned cancerous. The nucleus alone wasn't the culprit. Despite his evidence, Seyfried faced sharp pushback. The BBC ran a segment labeling his work misinformation, which many saw as a blow to open scientific debate. In response, the show decided to add more context for viewers. Now, during conversations, the actual cited studies appear on screen for everyone to see. There's another hidden factor you might never consider. B vitamins. They're added to nearly all processed grains and flours, and they make your mitochondria more efficient at turning food into stored energy. Livestock farmers have known this for decades. Studies show that adding B vitamins to animal feed can triple how efficiently every pound of food turns into body fat. That's great for the farmer, but not for your waistline. Think of it like a car engine. An efficient engine uses every drop of fuel to move forward, storing nothing. An inefficient one revs in neutral, burning fuel as waste heat. For weight loss, you actually want some metabolic inefficiency. You've heard of Ozempic and other GLP-1 drugs. They work by mimicking a natural hormone your gut releases after eating. That hormone tells your brain you're full and slows down how fast food leaves your stomach. The effect is powerful. Food can sit in your stomach for 24 hours instead of 4 to 6. That curbs appetite, but it also causes that bloated, nauseous feeling many people describe as Ozempic burps. Here's the catch. Human studies show that sweet cravings drop sharply in the first 6 months on these drugs, but by 2 years they creep right back to where they started. The body adapts. Even more concerning, a 2-year study found that roughly 40% of the weight lost on these drugs came from lean mass, muscle and bone, not fat. That's a serious problem, especially as we age. Dr. Bickman's approach is different. Use a low dose of GLP-1 for just 90 days, paired with coaching on a low-carb diet. The goal is to break the addiction to carbs, then stop the drug while the healthy habits remain. If you want a natural way to boost your own GLP-1, consider a rare sugar called allulose. It tastes sweet but isn't metabolized, and it travels further into your intestines, triggering a natural GLP-1 release. Collagen peptides have a similar effect. They also stimulate GLP-1 production naturally, plus new research shows they support skin health and joint integrity, a smart addition as we get older. Creatine works by recharging ATP, the body's main energy currency, in both muscle and brain cells. This means you can get more work done in a shorter workout, and your mind feels sharper, especially when you're tired. For brain benefits, you need a higher dose, 10 to 15 grams a day. This is especially valuable for women, who face a much higher lifetime risk of dementia. Creatine won't bulk you up, but it can help keep your mind sharp as you age. Making a real change is hard. You need a reason that goes beyond yourself. If you're a parent, you already have one. Your children. Show them what it looks like to take control of your health, not just for you, but for the people who count on you. One of the simplest changes you can make is cutting out evening alcohol. It might help you fall asleep faster, but it ruins the quality of your rest. Better sleep means lower cortisol the next day, fewer cravings, and less fat storage. Poor sleep and unmanaged stress are two of the fastest ways to become insulin resistant, not over months, but in just hours. When you're exhausted or stressed, your body holds on to fat and ramps up hunger signals. Fixing sleep is a metabolic lever you can pull tonight. For middle-aged men who feel constantly tired and can't seem to lose weight, it may be worth checking testosterone levels. A simple blood test can tell you. Often, losing a few pounds will naturally boost it back up, but if not, there are safe ways to support it. Dr. Bickman says the single most important test that doctors almost never order is fasting insulin. Standard panels check glucose and cholesterol, but not the hormone that drives fat storage. A fasting insulin level under 7 is a sign your metabolism is on track. A continuous glucose monitor is a small sensor you wear on your arm for 2 weeks. It shows you exactly how your body responds to every food you eat. Many people find that just seeing the real-time data motivates them to make better choices without anyone telling them to. When asked what one thing he would keep forever, Bickman didn't name a gadget or a supplement. He chose his religious scriptures. He believes his faith gives him a framework for purpose, resilience, and hope that goes beyond what science alone can offer. As a final note, the show's creator invites you to check out the new conversation cards, a set of questions designed to help you connect more deeply with the people in your life, because real health isn't just about the body, it's about the relationships that keep us going. This content is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or medication.